2 tails, 1 head, yin yang. Three heads, old yang. Two heads, 1 tail, yang yin. Three tails, old yin. Two tails, 1 head, yin yang. Three heads, old yang. from a Vitality Energy Spirit, which is a Taoist source book. This comprehensive anthology traces the teaching on the three treasures, vitality, energy, and spirit, through the long history of Taoism. Along with brief selections from the classic texts of Lao Tzu and Zheng Tzu, the book presents a rich selection of tales and sayings from Taoist literature, as well as a broad range of writings from the Complete Reality School. Compass Center Directions, the Mysterious Female. Understanding Reality says, if you want to attain the eternal immortality of the Valley Spirit, you must set the foundation on the mysterious female. Once the true vitality has returned to the room of yellow gold, the globe of spiritual light never parts. One opening in the body is called the mysterious female. It receives energy, whereby it gives birth to substance. It is the spiritual capital, where the three bases aggregate without further distinction. Vitality, spirit, and the higher and lower souls meet in this opening, which is the root of the restoration of the gold elixir, the place where spiritual immortals congeal the sacred embryo. People of old called this the stem of the ultimate, the handle of the primal, the source of open emptiness, the root of undifferentiated wholeness, the valley of cosmic space, the source of evolution, the opening back to the root, the pathway to restoration of life, the point of true unity, the yellow room in the center, the capital of the fundamental, the altar of preserving unity, the crescent moon furnace, the red sand cauldron, the lair of the dragon and tiger, the house of the go-between, the lead furnace, the earth pot, the spiritual water, the flower pond, the divine unity, the chamber of the spirit, the pedestal of awareness, the crimson palace. All of these terms refer to one point. But if you look for it in the body, it is not in the mouth, not the nose, not the heart, not the genitals, not the liver, not the lungs, not the spleen, not the stomach, not the umbilical sphere, not the coccyx, not the bladder, not the perineum, not the aperture between the kidneys and genitals, not the point 1.3 inches below the navel, not the point between the eyebrows, not the center of the brain, not the lower abdomen. So then where is it? My secret is called the unified attention in the center of the compass. If it is not scattered, it forms the embryonic immortal. The corresponding statement of the triplex unity says, real people plunge into the abyss and float around, keeping to the center of the compass. This is the place. Lao Tzu said, much talk runs out of reason. It is better to keep to the center. It is right in the center, the region where fire and water interact, precisely in the middle of the heaven and earth within the body. The empty opening where the systems of the 8 channels and 9 apertures interlink is a tiny pearl hanging in space. It is not based on physical form, but arises from understanding the way. It seems to exist, yet seems not to exist. It seems to be there, yet seems not to be there. It has no inside or outside, but there is a universe in the center. The pervasive principle of the center abides in the proper position. An ancient document says, pure and unified, hold to the center. A scripture on human salvation says, the center orders the 5 energies and combines the 100 spirits. Chang Yang called this finding out the beginning of receiving the energy that produces the body. Chang Po Town said, I urge you to find out the point where your body is produced. This is where the basic energy comes from, and this is where the true breath comes from. Therefore, Yu Qian also called it the place where thoughts stir. If alchemists do not understand this opening, then the true breath will not stay, and spiritual evolution has no foundation. Furthermore, this opening develops in the primal, but is contacted temporally. When the primal and temporal energies are totally merged into an undifferentiated whole, in the midst of the unknown depths there is a vitality. In the midst of ecstatic abstraction, there is a thing. The thing is not an ordinary thing. The vitality is not ordinary vitality. It is by this that the sky is clear, by this that the earth is steady, by this that humans are conscious. Master Tian said, "Finding the gate of the vast energy is the way to return to the root. Knowing the pouch of the original spirit is the way to hide your light, like an oyster keeping a pearl inside, like a stone concealing jade." All of these are authentic teachings. However, this opening has no sides and no inside or outside. If you seek it through forms and images of the physical body, that is making a big mistake. Therefore it is said, do not cling to non-doing, do not formalize action, do not get stuck in visualization, do not get attached to holding concentration. The symbols used by sages appear in the alchemical classics. Some call the mysterious female an elevation in the center of the mystery, shaped like a jar, closed and sealed, with the spirit operating within. Some say at first it is shaped like a black and white hen's egg, an inch in diameter. Then after 10 months it sheds that enclosure. Some say it is white as plain silk, continues like a ring 1.2 inches across, enclosing the pure essence of the body. These expressions clearly point out the essential aspect of the mysterious past, revealing the mechanism of creative evolution. If students do not find out the underlying mystery when they meditate and concentrate, when they meditate and concentrate on it as a jar, think of it as an egg, visualize it as a ring, depicting such forms, thus they cling to them as actually there, and their spirits enter into illusion. Is this not a serious error? If you want to know the opening of the mysterious past, the gateway of the mysterious female, the spiritual immortals have only pointed out the foundation of creative evolution. Yu Chan said, "It seems to exist, but does not. Setting aside your own body, where does it rest? The substance, function, and balance therein, however, are fundamentally not different. It is like using symbols from the Book of Change to represent heaven and earth, sun and moon." We will read our first trigram as solid, solid, broken, and our first bottom trigram of our first hexagram, and our top trigram as broken, solid, solid. So broken, broken, solid is trigram. Xun, thunder. Zen thunder. Thunder is shock, upheaval, and the spark of the new. In old Chinese belief, thunder slept in the earth over winter and erupted from it in spring, awakening living things into new growth. Thunder is our basic drive for renewal. He inspires initiative and decisive action. He is the stimulus that sets things in motion. He is the eldest son in the trigram family. The first connection of heaven, potential, with earth, realization. Yang makes itself known here, emerging into the field and beginning to grow. Thunder belongs to the east and to spring. And then broken, solid, solid. Is Xun, wind or wood. Xun is both wind and living plants. Whatever penetrates, spreads, and grows, shaping itself to the space available, or shaping that space to its own nature. She is responsive flexibility, sensitively improvising and adapting. Like the wind, she can always find a place through because she never creates any resistance, and so her influence is subtle and gradual, but far-reaching. In the family of trigrams, Xun is the eldest daughter, gentle and submissive. She belongs to the southeast and to late spring and early summer. Once our lines transform, the bottom trigram will be solid, broken, solid. And the top trigram will be solid, solid, broken. Solid, broken. Solid is Li, light or fire. Li is light and fire, both inner and outer. As an inner light, she is consciousness at its most lucid and unclouded, holding things together in the mind, perceiving their differences and connections, and discerning the underlying patterns of relationship. And as well as vision, Li is the light that makes things visible, the power to cast light on things, spreading clarity and awareness of order. Li is the middle daughter, living in the south, the region of midsummer and the burning sun. Solid, solid, broken will be our secondary hexagram's top or outer trigram is dewy, lake, or marsh. Dewy is lake and marsh, abundant energy that teems with life. She is the impulse to communicate, share, and exchange, and delights in both inner and outer conversation. She brings things into circulation and gives them voice. This is the sheer enjoyment of participating in life to the full, expressing ourselves and hearing others and satisfying our desires. Lake is the youngest daughter, spirit of the fertile west and of autumn. We'll be reading from the Taoist Ching by I-Ming, written in 1796 as a Taoist adept, translated by Thomas Cleary. First, we'll see how our hexagrams and changing lines relate to one another so we can get a handle on how we will understand this. When we come to the I Ching or consult the oracle with a question, we're asking generally, how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces beneath this moment of time? The key to understanding a reading is to know your way around its main components, how they fit together, and the different roles they play. If your reading includes changing lines, then you will need to understand primary hexagram, relating hexagram, and changing lines together. The two hexagrams in conversation with one another map out your whole answer. The primary hexagram shows you quite directly what your answer involves. The relating hexagram generally describes what the answer is about for you. It sets the primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. If the two hexagrams map out a landscape for you, the changing lines stick a pin in that map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They are the immediate answer to your question, as the most specific, focused part of a reading. Their message always takes precedence over all other elements. Also, we need to find out what hexagrams these are. Our primary hexagram will be 61. And the supporting hexagram will be $28. Sorry, 49. Yep. Okay. So we'll start by reading hexagram 61 out of the Taoist teaching. Faithfulness in the center, hexagram 61. Faithfulness in the center is auspicious when it reaches even pigs and fish. It is beneficial to cross great rivers. It is beneficial to be correct. Explanation. Faithfulness is truthfulness. Faithfulness in the center means truthfulness is within. The body of the hexagram has 4 yangs outside and 2 yins inside. Open inside, solid outside. Openness and solidity balance each other. Inside and outside correspond. Also, the qualities of the hexagram are inner joy and outer accord. Traversing the path with joyful accord, not obsessed and not astray, it is therefore called faithfulness in the center. This hexagram represents seeking fulfillment by being empty. It follows on the previous hexagram, dispersal. In dispersal, yang is trapped by yin. Yin sneaks in and yang gradually dissolves. If you want yin not to trap yang, but to accord with yang, so that yin and yang can join, this is impossible unless you are seriously faithful to the Tao. Without faithfulness to the Tao, practice is insubstantial and lacks power, inevitably leading to failure to complete what has been started. But if the mind is faithful and united, and thought is pure and true, myriad ruminations cease and sincerity within reaches outward, so that one can genuinely carry on true practice leading from lowliness to exaltation, from shallowness to depth, gradually enabling one to reach the state of profound attainment and self-realization. Spiritual alchemy, the science of the gold elixir, uses the yellow woman as the go-between for yin and yang. The yellow woman is true intent. Faithfulness in the center is truthfulness in the center. Truthfulness is associated with earth, which is called the yellow woman. With the yellow woman in the center, it is possible to harmonize yin and yang, to communicate with self and others, to respond to myriad things. There is nothing that cannot be influenced. Therefore, faithfulness in the center is auspicious when it reaches even pigs and fish. Pigs and fish represent those without knowledge. When truthfulness can influence them, those without knowledge can harmonize themselves. How much the more so those with knowledge? If practitioners of Tao can apply the truthfulness that influence even pigs and fish to cultivation of essence and life, they will not fail to produce good results. However, if faithfulness can be carried out in ease but not adversity, that faithfulness is not real and will surely crumble in the end. Even if one is faithful in this way, it does not bode well. There are people who believe in the Tao, and there are those who believe in the Tao and practice it regularly when all is well and comfortable. But there are hardly any who forget themselves for the Tao, and do not lose control in situations of great difficulty and stress, when there are great obstacles, when things are topsy-turvy and in shambles, and it is difficult to bear up patiently. If one can remain unmoved and unperturbed in situations that are hard to endure, can go on through and get out, this alone is faithfulness that can move pigs and fish. This is why it is beneficial to cross great rivers, for faithfulness in the center to bode well. Great rivers represent most hazardous places, adverse situations. If one can cross over adverse situations, needless to say one can cross over favorable situations. When able to pass through both favorable and adverse situations, that faithfulness is beneficial and auspicious wherever it goes. However, the 72 aberrant schools, with their 3,600 deviant practices, all cling to voidness or stick to forms. These are not studies that can fulfill our nature and lead to the meaning of life. The false distorts the real, the aberrant adulterates the correct. If you have faith without discriminating the false and real, the aberrant and correct, this is incorrect faithfulness, which is not beneficial and does not lead to good results. Therefore, faithfulness is only beneficial if it is correct. Correct faith and correct practice meet with good results. Unhindered in adversity or ease, entering from striving into non-striving, thereby perfecting essence in life, completing beginning and end. Of this one can be sure. In Hexagram 49, our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence of travel, how the entire reading relates to us. Revolution. In revolution, the sun of the self is truth. This is creative, developmental, fruitful, and perfect. Regret vanishes. Explanation. Revolution means riddance. The reason for riddance is obsolescence. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is lake, joyous, and below is fire, luminous. Joy is based on illumination, while illumination controls joy. In joy, there should be no delusion. In illumination, there should be no obscurity. Producing joy from within illumination, having illumination within joy, therefore it is called revolution. In the image of the hexagram, lake is metal, associated with the west. Fire is the fire associated with the south. Refining metal by fire, when metal meets fire, it produces brightness and is melted down. When fire meets metal, it goes into storage and returns to the root. This too is the meaning of revolution. This hexagram represents refining yin energy. It follows on the previous hexagram, exhaustion. In exhaustion, joy is produced from the midst of danger. This is how to take the true yang in water, to get out of danger. However, even if you can take the true yang in water, if you cannot restore the true yin in fire, the gold elixir will not crystallize, and you will not attain joy. So this path of producing joy from within illumination is indispensable. Producing joy from within illumination is the working of refining yin energy. Refining yin energy means refining one's own personal desires to become unselfish. Humans are the most conscious of beings, born with the true energy of the patterns of yin and yang, of heaven and earth. When they are first born, they unconsciously follow the laws of the Lord, completely good with no evil. The true essence is bright and clear, the open awareness unobscured. Emotions do not stick in their hearts. Wealth and poverty do not disturb their minds. Wild beasts cannot harm them. Weapons cannot get to them. Water and fire cannot overcome them. Life and death cannot burden them. When hungry, they simply eat. When cold, they just put on clothes. Without thought or reflection, their capacity is originally clear. Then when people reach the age of 16, yang culminates, producing yin. As they deal with things based on acquired conditioning, They develop characteristic temperaments and intellectual knowledge. At this point, only sages of superior wisdom granted by nature, when they are not opposing nature in the primal state, and when they serve nature in the temporal state, are able to preserve primal reality and not be damaged by acquired conditioning. Among mediocre and lesser people, rare are they who are not ruled and manipulated by acquired conditioning. After this, 100 anxieties confuse their minds. Myriad affairs belabor their bodies. They take the artificial to be real, abandon the true and enter the false. As the days and years go by, they become estranged by habit from what is close by nature, and the quality of clarity is damaged. The new piles up and becomes old, the pure becomes defiled. This is where the pollution of obsolescence and defilement comes from. If we look into the source of the pollution of obsolescence, stagnation, and defilement, we see it all comes from having a self. Once one has a self, an ego, the mind of Tao is obscured and the human mentality arises. Conscious of what one should not be conscious of, enjoying what one should not enjoy, one goes to any lengths following personal desires. So revolution simply means overthrowing the ignorance of the self to restore illumination. But if one wants to overthrow the ignorance of the self, it is necessary that the self first be understood. Once the self is understood, one can be sincere in revolution, and the ignorance of the self can be overthrown. Therefore, in the path of revolution, the sun of the self is truth. The sun is an image of illumination, understanding. Truth means sincerity. If one does not understand, one cannot be sincere. If one can understand, one will be sincere. With understanding and sincerity as the first thought is truthful, one will be able to overthrow and revolutionize the self. Therefore, revolution contains a path of creativity and development. However, though revolution is creative and developmental, it is necessary that revolution be correct. If right and wrong are not differentiated and true and false are not distinguished, but all are overthrown together, and one enters into nihilistic quietism, this is not correct, and so is not fruitful. And not being fruitful, it is not creative or developmental. Only by correct revolution, conquering the ego and returning to propriety, getting rid of falsehood and maintaining truthfulness, burning away all the pollution of conditioning and bringing to light the true essence of the primal unified awareness, reaching this state, returning to the fundamental, integrating with natural principle, pure and clean without flaw, can the regret of having a self vanish. This path is not hard to know. What is hard is to carry it out. It is simply a matter of people being able to be sincere in revolution. Our changing lines are 2, 3, 4, and 6. The general context behind each of them. Will be 2 is the heart's perception, the emotional center where you make and feel connections. 3 is an emerging identity, facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. 4 is the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. And 6 is beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. So we'll read from Hexagram 61, changing line 2. A calling crane is in the shade. Its fledgling joins it. I have a good cup, which I will quaff with you. Explanation. With true faithfulness in the center, knowing the white and keeping the black, subtly penetrating the barrier between yin and yang, spiritual illumination naturally comes. This is like a calling crane is in the shade. Its fledgling joins it. I have a good cup, which I will quaff with you. Mutual response with the same voice, mutual seeking in the same spirit, spontaneously being thus without aiming for it. This is faithfulness and hidden practice of inner refinement. And then changing line 3. Finding enemies, sometimes drumming, sometimes stopping, sometimes crying, sometimes singing. Explanation. Getting into aberrant practices attached to your own body, attempting forced manipulations, is like faith in which one finds enemies. Faith becomes enmity. After a time, there inevitably comes a change, as one first believes in this, then that. When this practice doesn't work, one then tries that practice. Sometimes drumming, sometimes stopping, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing. Vain and insubstantial. This is what is referred to by the statement, it's easy to work with what is of the same species, hard to work with what is not of the same kind. Believing in what is not to be believed will inevitably destroy faith. This is faith that takes the false to be true. And then changing line 4 and then 6. Changing line 4. The moon approaches fullness. The pair of horses is gone, no fault. Explanation. In the space where above is yang and below is yin, yielding yet remaining upright, following the yang and not the yin, is like the moon approaches fullness. The pair of horses is gone. The human body is pure yin with no yang, just as the moon has no light of its own. It must borrow the gift of another before it can produce the elixir. Just as the moon borrows the light of the sun, at the time of the new moon, it meets with the sun, and moonlight arises in the first 3 days of the lunar month. On the 15th, when it faces the sun, its light is round and full. This is yin following yang. On the 16th, one yin subtly arises and increases until the 30th, when the moon turns away from the sun and has no light at all. This is yin turning away from yang. The science of the gold elixir begins with yin seeking yang to return to pure heaven. This is like the moon approaching fullness. Having used yang to repel yin so as to transmute the temperament and constitution is like a pair of horses having gone. Following the yang to eliminate the yin, a precious pearl hangs in space, round and bright, clean and bare, illumining everything. Nothing can deceive it. So what fault could there be that would not disappear? This is the faithfulness of weakness seeking strength. And then changing line 6. The voice of a pheasant reaches the skies. Even if devoted, the outlook is bad. Explanation. If one uses one's own intellect to indulge in guesswork and personalistic interpretation, unable to humble oneself to seek from others and thoroughly investigate true principles, and plunges into practices impetuously, one who advances rapidly regresses swiftly. Though one originally wanted to climb to the heights, instead one falls. This is just the call of a pheasant, incapable of soaring to the heavens to accomplish that which is rare in the world. This is faith that misuses intellect. So the path of faithfulness in the center values faithfulness that is balanced, and above all, faith that is correct. When faithfulness is balanced, the will is stable and endures unchanged. When faith is correct, right and wrong are clear, and practice of the Tao is very easy. Able to be balanced and correctly oriented, faithful to the Tao, one can then practice the Tao. By practicing the Tao, one can attain the Tao. By this, one faithfulness, there is unfailing fortune and benefit. And then from the back, more of I-Ming's commentary. on Hexagram 61. Truthfulness within. Wind above, lake below. There is wind above a lake, with truthfulness between them. Thus superior people consider judgments and postpone execution. Truthfulness within means there is sincerity in the center. Above is wind, below is lake. There is wind above a lake. The form of a lake is facing upward. The nature of wind is penetrating. Wind blows on the lake receives the wind, as though there is feeling between them. This is the image of truthfulness within. What superior people see in this is that adjudication of criminal cases concerns people's nature and life, and if there is any carelessness, the innocent are harmed. Therefore, after a conviction is established, they do not immediately carry out the sentence. Even if the crime is unpardonable, they still postpone execution and reconsider the case, seeking a way of life in the midst of death. Practitioners of the Tao search out the recondite and find out the hidden, fish out the profound and reach the remote, so as to thoroughly investigate the abstruse and subtle truth. This requires genuine knowledge and clear vision, without the slightest trace of confusion in the mind. In this sense, it is like adjudication of criminal cases. When one understands truth in the mind and puts it into actual practice, the mind dies and the spirit comes to life. Gradually cultivating this without seeking immediate results is like postponing execution. Consideration is whereby life is sought in the midst of death, freeing the innocent and condemning the guilty, enlivening what should be alive and killing what should be dead. If consideration is not thoroughgoing, one has no independent perception, and one does not have too much self-confidence. How could it be appropriate to kill rashly? Postponement means reconsideration of whether or not death is appropriate. Inasmuch as the way of life is perforce difficult, the way of death is not easy either. If one does not postpone death, but rather hastens death, hoping for quick accomplishment, one may become a nihilistic quietist. So it is a matter of death after consideration, and then reconsideration at the time of death, whether it is right or wrong, true or false. Only when this is perfectly clear in one's mind will one avoid the mistake of taking the spurious for the genuine. In the image of the hexagram, above is wind, representing gradual advance, while below is lake, representing harmonious and joyful action. Gradualism means one can avoid haste. Harmony means one can be considerate. With consideration and relaxation, truthfulness within being put into practice outwardly, an all-out effort will dissolve away all the pollution of conditioning and expose the primordial original being, so that one will surely reach the realm of eternal life. Hexagram 49. Change, lake above, fire below. There is fire in a lake, changing. Thus do superior people make a calendar and clarify the seasons. Change is transformation. Above is lake, below is fire. There is fire in a lake. A lake is wet, fire is hot. If there is too much moisture, fire will dry it up. If there is too much heat, moisture will dampen it down. When moisture and fire are in the same place, the wetness and heat balance each other. This is the image of change. What superior people see in this is that as people establish their careers in the world, when they cannot achieve proper adjustment based on actualities and cannot adapt to the times, it is because they do not understand the principle of change of the celestial Tao and the seasons of advance and withdrawal of yin and yang. Therefore, superior people divide the various seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter with their 24 energies in 72 periods, and thus make a calendar to show that the operation of the energies of the 5 elements each has its own time, to enable people to obey heaven and accord with the time, changing any element that is excessive so that it returns to correct balance. Heaven has its times of operation. People have times when they should act. As the time changes, the way changes. So the way of change is the way of going along with the time. When one acts appropriately in concert with the time, action and inaction, preservation and elimination will not lose their proper balance. This too is one kind of celestial practice. We'll read our hexagrams and changing lines also from Hilary Barrett's I-ming, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future. Hexagram 61 she calls Inner Truth. Key questions. Where do you place your trust? What feels true? Oracle. Inner truth. Piglets and fishes. Good fortune. Fruitful to cross the great river. Constancy bears fruit. The old Chinese character for inner probably shows a drum mounted on a pole. It suggests centrality and balance, and also the vibrations that carry through inner space. And the character for truth shows a bird's claw over a child, suggesting the mother bird protecting her young. It also means confidence and the sincerity that inspires it. Absolute presence and concentration, creating a true connection. The very present truth vibrates through you like a drumbeat. You apprehend it directly as an inner resonance. The lines of the hexagram itself show a space at the center, open to listen and resound with the intensity of experience. Piglets and fishes are symbols of wealth, plenty, and luck. They are staple foods used in humble offerings to the spirits. To receive piglets and fishes shows that you are in a state of connectedness and can trust you will be provided for. Success in ongoing ventures, rearing your pigs, and the insight to be in the right place at the right time, placing the fishing nets, are both manifestations of your inner truth. And so it is good to commit yourself. Inner truth will naturally move you towards new landscapes, as the inner hollow of a boat would carry you across the water. You stay true to your understanding by carrying it through into action, translating the moment of insight into responsiveness as a constant way of living. Image. Above the lake is the wind, inner truth. A noble one deliberates over legal proceedings and delays executions. The wind reaches and influences everywhere, always bringing new messages of change. The open surface of the lake, stirred by the wind, is constantly in motion. As the lake doesn't set hard into a final shape, so the noble one is slow to take irreversible decisions. To be true, she stays fluid and open, allowing herself to be moved by changing circumstances and new perspectives. Sequence. Inner truth follows from hexagram 60, measuring. Measuring and also trusting it, and so inner truth follows. By clearly defining agreements, measuring makes trust possible. When people share a way of measuring and understanding, a mental map, they can trust one another. When the map corresponds with reality, they enjoy a trustworthy connection with the world. Pair. Inner truth is paired and contrasted with hexagram 62, small exceeding. Small exceeding steps over the line. Inner truth means trust. With inner truth, you have complete confidence. Things feel stable and dependable. Small exceeding is the opposite experience, stepping out into the world, feeling small, exposed and out of balance, constantly aware of the need to adapt.
Hexagram 49, our supporting hexagram. She calls radical change. Key questions. How can you break the mold? How must the form change to express the essence? Oracle, radical change. On your own day, there's truth and confidence. From the source, creating success, constancy bears fruit. Regrets vanish. It is time for transformation. The old Chinese character for radical change, which also means leather, shows an animal hide. This is change like a shaman's, putting on a new skin to change your identity. And it is also revolutionary change. This hexagram marks the day when the Zhao people and their allies marched out to meet the armies of the corrupt Shang dynasty and defeat them. You change the governing principle and bring about renewal. In the moment of change there is truth, sincerity, and a sure knowledge. Then the power of the whole unfolding creative process, from the source through to fruition and fulfillment, can enter here and change the world. Naturally, regrets vanish, along with the past to which they belong. Along with the past to which they belong. The new time is coming. Image. In the center of the lake there is fire, radical change. A noble one calculates the heavenly signs and clarifies the seasons. The new king must realign the calendar with the stars, bringing his people's daily activities back into harmony with the time. The light of awareness is at the center of things, clear and unambiguous as starlight, and the calendar gives it expression. Inner lucidity illuminates and transforms a way of life, not bringing change for its own sake, but restoring a natural harmony. Sequence. Radical change follows from hexagram 48, the well. The way of the well does not allow things not to change radically. Over time, human regimes fall out of harmony with the way, Tao. Reconnecting with the unchanging source requires you to change the way you live. Pair. Radical change forms a pair with hexagram 50, the vessel. Radical change puts away the old, the vessel grasps renewal. Before you can found the new, you must remove the old. You may need to make deeper changes than you imagined. We have changing lines 2, 3, 4, and 6 to read from hexagram 61. Changing line 2. These are going to be the most focused point, similar to when we read them in the Taoist teaching of our reading. Line 2. Calling crane in the shadows, her young respond in harmony. I have a good wine vessel. I will share with you, pouring it all out. The crane calls from a hidden place, inviting connection, and her young respond. A graceful bird-shaped wine vessel is poured out in friendship. There is complete and unreserved sharing, like the love of parent and child. Any information conveyed here is far less important than the simple presence of communication that can reach across any distance. Whether or not this moment endures, it is a true connection of souls and a blessing in itself. Line 3. Gaining a counterpart, maybe drumming, maybe resting, maybe weeping, maybe singing. You join with your counterpart, a person or situation that acts as your match and mirror, in a pattern of mutual reaction. Everything is reflected back and magnified. Advance is followed by retreat, and exaggerated emotions veer between extremes. This is not communication. Dialogue, inner or outer, would need more space. Instead, there is a great intensity of experience. Its volatile emotions not quite mastered. E does not say if this is good or bad. Changing line 4. The moon almost full, a horse's yokemate runs away. No mistake. The light is growing. What is new and still in potential is stronger than what is old and well established. This is the cusp of change, and there is good light to travel by. A horse that has been part of a team runs away. Drawn towards greater authenticity, you separate from a companion and become free to find your own way. You leave behind whatever kept you moving in a predetermined direction, realizing that you are not required to carry on. There is no necessary connection. Even if you feel some nostalgia for what you leave behind, nothing is wrong. Line 6. Cock crow rises to heaven, constancy, pitfall. The cockerel's crowing rises to heaven. The cockerel does not, nor does his crowing. The cockerel does not, nor does his crowing cause the sun to rise. You are making noises you cannot match in reality. This enters realms of overambition, leaving inner truth behind. Instead of trusting, you demand a response, trying to force a connection and define how things shall be. But there are limits to the changes you can create with your words. When you are overreaching yourself, persevering in your agenda will not help and is likely to damage relationships. I'm going to read chapter 43 from the Tao Te Ching. The softest thing in the universe overcomes the hardest thing in the universe. That without substance can enter where there is no room. Hence, I know the value of non-action. Teaching without words and work without doing are understood by very few.